I'm allowed to have one good idea a year. And the one for this year was to think up 3 generations of Ohio poets. And to just celebrate the creativity we have right around us. And next weekend in Columbus is the high school slam poetry championships. And we've been going the last couple of years with the ulterior motive of recruiting people for Wellspring, but also to watch these young people. And last year, there was a guest performer, who's our first poet for the evening, and I was taken, is she here? Oh, there you are, okay. I'm going to give her a build-up. I was taken with her energy and vibrancy and her ability. So I'd like you to get to see it for yourselves right now. And Shameca Moore, come up and show us.
Smoke is meant to be a warning that something is being destroyed. We are all being destroyed. I've witnessed women with scars deep enough for condemning, chopped and tarnished hair 3 blocks away from what they find flattering. They tell me they are getting closure. These scalpel ladies are running from past bed sheets and eroding guards like genocide survivors. We call them bitter. They believe they are better for it, believe that wisdom and cynical are fraternal twins who don't claim each other in front of company. See, that's why I don't mess with these trifling ass dudes, man. They ain't nothing but dogs, man. Chicks always trying to change a dude. You know, I'm on that Mary J. Blige shit. What she say? Just take me as I am. When I walk into a room, I count the potential lovers who could commit theft on my naive. I number them in centimeters from my right shoulder to my cardiac. I take deep breaths. When my fingers touch the profile of my ribs, I look at all the angry women in the room who have not learned the basic potential math of break up like I have. See, I don't know why he does that to me. It's like he never wants to talk about his feelings. Yo, all she want to do is talk about her feelings. It's like she ain't got nothing else to talk about, you know? My mother and I, we smoke cigarettes like past lovers, one after the other, with nothing left to go back to after our Newport seeks ashtray. My mother is seeking port in herself to get rid of all the new ash. We both wish there were Surgeon General warnings on our future heartbreaks, but we know we would still chain smoke lovers, let them take our breath away, and call the cancer in our lungs potential. I just never thought he would do that to me. She don't get that just because I'm a good guy don't mean I'm going to be a good father to her 5 kids. Does anyone see how dangerous we are for each other? We leave club lights and dating sites to make blueprints for our next long-term suicide plan. There's an educated woman crying between her child's meals. There's a man who boasts about only crying 2 times in his life, does not mention it is for the father he never met and the woman he will never forget. There is a wife dangling from a ceiling fan who asks for divorce. There is a man inside a vagina whose density he doesn't care for, but he knows he won't be the one getting played this time. There is a woman at my kitchen table with blonde hair, a shaved neck side, and a dragon of an addiction in her left hand. She whispers to me, "Baby, your mom is finally getting closure." I imagine there's a man with new realms that whisper, "I'll never let a woman do that to me again," who briefly strokes the cancer she left pierced in his side, and they both take in an inhale and put out a cigarette that is not near good enough. Thank you guys so much for having me. I am Shameca, and I'm going to be doing some poems for you all. That poem, I didn't want to really redo anything from last time I was here because there's so many familiar faces. So I'll probably do that tomorrow. But for today, I'm going to try to do some different shit. Different stuff. I have the worst potty mouth ever. You'll see that especially tomorrow. I'm going to try to contain it today. Nonetheless, today, if I had a theme about anything, including the poem I just did, it would be about, love and hate, that cliche stuff, but particularly about self-hate. I think that it's really crucial that we realize that we pass on self-hate to our people beyond us, and just like we pass on love. So it's so necessary to love yourself in this day and age for so many reasons, and I guess that's what this set is all about. Particularly as a Black woman for myself, I have very big issues loving myself, especially when men who look like me often are the greatest ones who are telling me not to, and all the reasons why I am not worth being loved. And so there's many times that I have to constantly come face to face with my self-hate. And this poem is one of them. So I'm on a date with a dude dark enough to make midnight jealous. I like how his skin hangs to mine like a color's only sign. Then he looks at me deep enough in my eyes to make an oasis of my soul and says, I usually only date white or light-skinned girls, but you really pretty for a dark-skinned girl. He smiles, like there's an engagement ring planted in what he meant as a compliment, and I, ever so ladylike, respond with, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? I try to keep myself from regurgitating all the Marcus Garvey I've ingested in the last 7 years, but Malcolm has found his way out by any means necessary, so I tell him, bathing in a tub full of bleach must be your weekend hobby, huh? I mean, I bet when you suck your lips in really tight, you think you look like Ashton Kutcher. You would have to wear charcoal for concealer, and I'm pretty for a dark-skinned girl. I don't know why I got so upset after the 77th time hearing this. I've always been in those PB&J relationships, when you date a dude who's so dark, he's purple as grape jelly, and his infestation of darkness can make a brown-skinned girl feel peanut butter, feel caramel, feel anything closer to house than cotton field. And at that moment, I realized the only thing I and this poor excuse for Omar Epps had in common was hating ourselves. So after giving him every Audre Lorde quote I could think of, I politely step over the culture he's left on the way to his seat. I leave a little bit of mine. I make my way back to my hood. I stop at the corner of Pickaninny and Petite. I allow my steering wheel to mourn my forehead. This is what it looks like when Black girls give prayers in the projects, when you're not man enough for God and not light enough for your own people, when having breasts makes you inferior and the lack of pink in your nipples makes you hopeless, when you got way too much melanin to be a feminist and your womb isn't covered by the NAACP, but hey, at least you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl. Thank you guys again. So both of those poems that I just read were poems that I wrote when I was around 19. I'm 24 now, so it was a good 5 years ago. And certainly a time when I was still dealing with similar things now with less information on what they were, self-hate being that thing. So with that being said, I want to go into a poem that I wrote for young men like the men in that poem. And it's a shorter piece, so just bear with me while I become an I poet really quick. Let's see. So it's called House. Very simple. Son, you forgot home. She's still waiting. Yeah, her, she knows. You forgot you were a home birth. You cried hard. You didn't want to leave home. You're much better at that now. She knows. Now you call home ghetto. Yeah, ghetto? Home remembers you loved her brick hard. Yeah, her. Home feels like rubble. It's not easy being brick torn down in the White House, not you too. Home is too loud. Home has no class. That's why you don't fuck with home anymore. She knows. Home remembers. Home's class taught you hard. Home built you into a son who hates brick. Weren't you raised by them? Aren't you brick yourself? Yeah, you. She knows. Home hates herself hard. She leaves the door unlocked. She knows you forgot the neighborhood. You forgot you. She says forgot, but she means running from. She knows. Hard. You want house. House makes you successful. House is nothing like home. House stays silent. House doesn't even home. Thank you, guys. So I think that oftentimes, I'm so for interracial dating, by the way. I don't know if you got the premise of that poem. I'm so for it. Nonetheless, what I'm not for is you hating yourself and looking for something that's not you in order to cover that up. I can't tell which is which with relationships, but I do know that that's something I've dealt with for a very, very, very long time. And I believe that it was something that was passed on from my mom. And something that she didn't know that she passed on to me. Maybe the few things that I inherited was a sense of self-hate. And so this poem is called A Tip for the Children Who Take Care of the Mother Whom Barely Took Care of Them. Do not stare at the designs, as intricate as a family village, on her lengthy acrylic nails. The contacts that were gray, now hazel, softer, still colored contacts. The empty Four Locos that could not make it to the trash can like she cannot make it to bed when she's had too many. Hand over the Charmin Ultra Soft, the Dove dishwashing liquid, the always overnight pads without the lecture about budgeting, and you saying shit that you wish you could end with, yuck, I'm sounding just like my mom, but you can't because you're talking to your mom. And your mouth is doing that one thing that she hates, not closing. And until she finds herself, she's screaming along, and your verse is something about responsibilities and priorities, words as abstract as the next time your father would visit, and she did not leave. She stayed. With hair as red as you see when you return from a 9-hour shift to a filthy house, likely from the frequent pity parties it throws. The couch is as worn as your mother's back and lungs. Her learning disability is the umbilical cord around her neck, her neck hasn't managed to shake. Section 8 threatens to run away if she dare find a mediocre job, makes her threaten to do the same. Everyone is hurting here. Burning Palo Santo don't work here. You'll hate yourself if you yell again. Chuckle as you joke with your mom to get her cousin, referring to the roach captured under your shoe. Cry on the finest Walmart spread, alone and quietly. You escaped the hood once. You can do it again. This time, the only thing you fight against is the urge to take them with you, to be the child it took to raise a village. Thank you guys again. So, is it okay if I do two more? Or one more? Either one.
One more.
All right, one more it is. So, I think I'll go with this one. And tomorrow will be maybe a little bit more uplifting. Maybe it won't. I can't really promise you anything, guys, at all. But I can say that from these poems, I've become a lot better. So if they're depressing to you, just know that that release that I just got on you, it was worth it for me. I'm sorry. So this is a poem I actually wrote at Wells Springs Thomas, you know, you was there. Oh yeah, this is Thomas, y'all. In case y'all didn't know, he's the ish. So this is called How Black Girls Are Broken. I don't know how black girls are broken, but I know the look. Escaping my mother's lashes when I inquire why she hasn't cleaned the house in days, and she responds, I just can't today. And I believe her. I don't know how black girls are broken. I know Jaeger bombs and cheap whiskey, the smell of frat boys who belts insults at the nigger whore close by that I later realize is me. Before I can part ways with my trench coat to square up with a bigot, he has disappeared into darkness. Before I knew I was doing the same. I don't know about breaking black girls, but I fear my womb can spit a hyper masculinity so vile he recalls pulling himself from my insides by the bootstraps alone. He kicks anything abandoned and barely standing, anything that resembles me. I don't know about the breaking, but I know how to make identities layers in the fall, stripped down to one or two at a time, to be black, poor, woman, queer, and declining the invitation to organized religion is a heat stroke ready to happen. I don't know how black girls get broke, y'all, but I know the end of the month. When the food stamps are as low as my family and I think of ourselves. I know my mama's so poor that, my teeth so gapped that, I'm so black that, from men who look like men I march for on the coldest days Madison has to offer. You know, actually, right now, I don't know anything but autumn. Every twig ripped of its vibrance, growing back even more vibrant solely because it grew back. You know, y'all, I don't know about black girls breaking or being healed, but I know my home no longer smells of burning hair. Yesterday, I coaxed each piece of myself into the room against my coworkers' approval. Today, my mother cleans a kitchen as scattered as her mind, even though she can't. Thank you guys so much.
For our next generation, we have Dr. Amit Majmudar, Ohio's first poet laureate. And he's a Renaissance man. He's a nuclear radiologist and a poet. What a sentence. So without further ado, Amit, would you like to come get us started?
Thank you so much, Alan. Thank you for everyone for coming out. And I'm just really honored to be here. This is my first time here. Mika, that was amazing. I think we got a future laureate right there. Yeah. So I'm just going to read you a few things. Alan, actually, I can set a timer. I don't. You just give me just gesture. I'll finish up. So the first one I'm going to read is actually, this is my book Dothead, which was released in March of last year. I actually didn't bring any because I've run out of copies of my own, but you can get it. You can get it on Amazon if you want. So, or local bookstores. You're right. Preferably local bookstores. And I've been doing a lot of appearances, and I'm always reading from this, and I'm kind of bored with it, so I'm going to read you some new stuff. So this next one hasn't even been published yet, and it's called The Beard. And what prompted that was, several months ago, there was this terrorist attack by a guy named Ahmad Rahami, okay? And when CNN got his pictures that they were showing of this guy, they had two pictures. One was him in that like typical radicalized terrorist beard, okay? And then they had his driver's license picture where he was clean shaven. And when I saw, you know, the one, I could see that, okay, that looks like a terrorist. And then they showed him clean shaven, I was like, that guy looks like me. And I realized that, like, when I'm clean shaven, I look like, you know, your Indian doctor. But then if I would let my beard grow out, people would look at me differently. So anyway, this is called the beard. What was I like before this beard? More like, what was I not like? Who I was depended. I feared consensus because stupidity lies in numbers. Among believers, an atheist. Among atheists, a skeptic. Among skeptics, an agnostic. Among agnostics, all emphatic on the apophatic. I laughed in my beard at market panics, fanaticism, Beyonce worship. Not that I had a beard back then. Neither did Ahmad Rahami in his driver's license. My doppelganger Afghan, mon semblable, I will not say mon frère. When the pictures of him bearded, beardless, bearded, showed up on 60 million screens, I was partway through my 3rd mile on an urban active treadmill. Well, shucks, I thought. And yes, that quaint Midwestern word shows up in my internal monologues. Well, shucks, that bastard looks like me. Judging from the sidelong glances of flat-footed accountants running for their lives to either side of me, I was not the only one who thought so. The more they eyed me, the more my face began to itch. By mile 5, this thing had bushed out. My face a time-lapse chia pet. And off the treadmill, I was running to my car for dear life and a shit quattro. I tried a classic straight razor I got off Amazon and a brown electric shaver, too. The shave is not so much not close enough as not a shave at all. Instead, a kind of endless passing of my hand, unbelieving through a hologram. The more folks look, the more it grows. You see, it's quite foreclosed, the flux of me. I've gone from being e pluribus unum, and on that pluribus, every rider, me and me and me, to maybe him, unknowably. I try to talk to keep things chummy, because my silence, once the sign of my interiority, is now at best a sulk, at worst a seethe. Ahmad, Amit, Rahimi, him, me. Me with no way now to bear my true face, veiled beneath his beard. I'm alone here now. Among Americans, a foreigner. When just last year I used to be among Americans, American. So this next one's also, this one's already been published, but it's, you know, I'm Ohio's laureate. I don't usually write about Ohio, but this one I actually wrote to Ohio. And the interesting thing about it, or hopefully not the only interesting thing, is that it's written in Anglo-Saxon alliterative meter. And, because, you know, the very origins of English, and the earliest Old English, like Beowulf and everything like that, they actually didn't necessarily rhyme. What they did was, you know, they played with consonants, and they patterned consonants. And then actually there was like the Norman invasion of England, and French versification styles came in with Chaucer, and then they started using basically rhyme schemes that are more familiar to us today. And I often have thought that, look, if that didn't happen, how would contemporary poetry look if we were still playing with consonants the way the earliest English language poets did? And so I wrote this poem as a contemporary poem, but in that very, very ancient alliterative Anglo-Saxon meter. and scheme. And it's about Ohio. And in the first line, I say something, I use a Latin phrase, odi et amo, which means I hate and I love. But other than that, it should be pretty familiar. And it's called Chillicothe apostrophe. Here's my odi et amo, ode to you, O homely Ohio of the torn-up turnpike. Semis crisscrossing your map like mud-flap magnificent buffalo. Frankfurters sweating under flecked hot lamps. Backcountry ice cream parlor parking lots cacophonously Kanye, where the white boys wear wife beaters and talk black with platinum-plated buck teeth. Counties once Ku Klux, now bling bling. Your Amish kitchen smoked ham and pancakes. Your former fighter parlets with Parkinson's, in whose mute dementia Ashland is Inchon. Your trickle-crooked creeks, once flush, now fishless, and spanned by rust-rotted struts. Your coal car carcasses, your house husks, shucked of equity, to the brambles abandoned, necrotic Cleveland, suburb encrusted, equal parts elegy and punchline. Youngstown with no young, steel mill sepulchral. Painesville, painting herself Pabst Blue, OU. Fought for, fawned over, every 4 years when donkeys and elephants, asinine self-trumpeting, stampede your stadiums, factories, fairgrounds, state of the suddenly sad-eyed barflies, and shrunken truckers with saggy tattoos, of immigrant internists, soft-spoken and Cuban cologne, of table saw grandpas with stumps for thumbs, state of the ghost strip malls in the algae lake, alas, Ashtabula, cry woe Cuyahoga, oh, nowhere I am native, maker of presidents, mother of poets, oh heart shape, oh hardship, Ohio, oh home. I actually remembered while I was sitting here, I was thinking about, driving through the country and how beautiful this part of the state is. And I was also thinking about how when I was young, I never enjoyed this kind of stuff. Like, I never went fishing, never really did much, as I'll tell you in this poem. And what was funny to me is that my twin boys, who are 9 years old, they're the biggest Mark Twain fans you've ever seen. And they read the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Adventures of Mark, Tom Sawyer, and they love Mark Twain. They reintroduced me to Mark Twain. So I had written off Mark Twain years ago. Yeah, I read a couple of things in high school, and I was just forgetting about it. And my twins, who were 8 years old, 7, 8 years old at the time, they were just like, we love Mark Twain, this and that. And I reread all the major works of Mark Twain over the past 2-3 years because of my twins. And I think this poem is, not one that I've ever read in public before, but it's kind of fits this, for me at least psychologically, it fits like this country, this beautiful part of the state, and nature and everything. And it also dovetails with just that aspect of it. It's called The Adventures of Ummat Majmudar. Okay? The Adventures of Ummat Majmudar. It's kind of about my boyhood. Never laid a snare for nothing. Never caught a bullfrog. Broke my slingshot wishbone wishing. Never had a smoke. Never clipped a baseball card to thutter in the spokes. My fist clenched an ink pen. And I learned what to think when, and never swore no honest Injun. And never spat, and never struck. Where you gone, Tom? Where you at, Huck?
Well, there he is.
There he is. Yeah. Where you gone, Tom? Where you at, Huck? I call myself a man today, though I've never been a boy, and dug for treasure in the woods, or lost myself in play, feared dead for 7 days until I showed up by my grave and made a sniffling town rejoice. I could have been a pirate, Mama, at least a Robin Hood. But I was always up to something employable and good. And now I'm down here in this cave, crying, crying to be saved, though I reckon I am stuck. Where you gone, Tom? Where you at, Huck? So I'll read you two more. Really, what I didn't expect but was really moving was this tribute to the late Mr. Kimura, Greg. I mean, I never met him. And that's clearly something that I wish I had done. And he just sounds like a truly extraordinary person. And so this elegy that I'm going to read, in that sense, relates to what we heard earlier. It's called Steep Ascension. And there was a poet named John Hollander who wrote a poem called Steep Declension. And it was in a very difficult rhyme scheme. Like, so, will, well, wall, ill, el, all. Like, he had these tercets, and they went basically like that. And he passed away. And when he passed away, I wrote this poem as what's called a bout rhymes, or rhyme bout. So basically, I take his rhyme words, and I wrote him a poem using the rhyme words of his own poem, basically. And his poem was Steep Declension. This is Steep Ascension. A last tercet, reworked like a last will. He told me he was writing, feeling well, but I found his body turned to face the wall, no bigger than a child's. 8 years ill, he slept with his legs drawn up, a letter L. I saw 3 cards beside his bed and all his meds, hope's aspirin, the spirit's pill, the withered fig tree of his IV pole. His white skin withered too, beyond the pale. I saw how age can leave the skull a hill, and the breath a white wind whistling in a hole. He awoke when a gurney squealed down the hall. We spoke. He told me how a poem ticks, a clock, a bomb, a heart that's been attacked. It felt like medicine to hear him talk. Heart medicine, because my heart was sick to see another Alexandria sacked. Goethe burning, Lowell, Job, Balzac. And though I told myself that death begins the work of stocking all the shelves again, I knew this rare edition would be gone. His room's barbaric biometric din was full of screens that lit up and trilled like dawn whenever a heart lead came undone. For all our neat rhymes, John said, death's a mess. A juice cup tipped, bedpans a bleeding mass. It doesn't lack for the lachrymose. I guess sophistication must regress to speech as rusticated as the grass, where rumination bows its head to graze. We write, we die, and what we've written dies, he said. But damn it, those were blessed days deciding if a given rhyme would do. His cuff inflated and gave out with a sigh the same old numbers, nothing more to say. To think the heart's blood could be measured so. Systolic, diastolic, waking, dream. What use defining rhythms for the drama if soul won't put her bare fist through the drum? Back when I was young, he said, it seemed the art and the artful were one and the same. No sweeter labor than to do my sums, to jump the fence and grin around the bit. Listen, Amit, that's not what it's about. It isn't worth it if it isn't bought with suffering. The best of us have written,
maybe a dozen lines that tap the root. The rest, bout rhymes with dead men, overwrought. I sensed the disappointment in him, the fear. But John, I told him, beauty is a fire. Those who burn hardest labor coldly for. And I, for one, will hold your labors dear. The music of meaning, the artistry that dares to conjure walls that it might conjure doors.
Let's see. I will finish out with a poem I wrote for my son. I told you I have twin sons, and they're both 9 years old now. But before they were born, one of them was diagnosed with a life-threatening heart defect that required 3 open heart surgeries before he was 2 years old. And and then there was complications that happened after that, and so there was one healthy twin and one twin with this catastrophic problem, and so they have differing growth rates. So if you saw them, you'd think that one was the younger brother of the other, and so they were both the same age, but they were developing at these different rates, and so one would start losing his teeth, and then his brother wouldn't. And that prompted this poem. It's called "The Boy Who Couldn't Grow Up," and it's basically about that whole experience. The boy who couldn't grow up. His twin has lost another tooth today. I try not to make too big a to-do. Tomorrow, 2 more Easter eggs to die for coming back to life. My heart prayed out with gratitude he lived. He's elfin-eared and easier to lift. My boy who isn't going to grow, born with a holy heart, his lips blue-gray, his body shivering at 7 degrees inside a baby greenhouse, all for him, his life support. A lullaby-like hum for the month and a half we couldn't take him home. That cruel April of a risen sun and a second sun who almost set too soon. Drawn from the womb-dark sea and ascend. Sun, you are perfect. Your arms and legs are perfect. The knees and knobs and nose of you are perfect. Sealed septum, welded breastbone, perfect, perfect. Precisely the size and sorcery you are. Beyond a surgeon's, poet's, father's art. This sprung rhythm of your spring-risen heart. Thank you.
Third-generation poet. I met at Poetry Out Loud 2016, and Katie back there is the lady in charge of that wonderful program. Thank you for coming and doing it. And I was so impressed with Thomas. And as I was walking out, I saw this gentleman and said, "Oh, are you here with one of the poets?" And he just modestly said, "Yes, I am." Well, it turns out to be Herb Martin. And the best introduction I could give for him is last year he did a poem at Power of Poetry. And when he got up to do it, Thomas, with all this pride, said, "That's my coach." What a great moment. So, okay, Coach, you're on.
Okay. Sitting there, I realized why it's good to go first. I will try and make this short and sweet. In Grand Rapids, when I got up to read, I lost a little sheet of paper. I had to dig through all of this to find it. And finally, somewhere midway between the poems, it fell out. And so there it is. So I went around, picked it up, and decided to read it. It's only half a page because what happened in the middle of the night, something woke me up. And I had gone to bed reading E.E. Cummings. And I woke up understanding why all those parentheses were in the poems, and so started to write. I wrote quickly one draft and thought, I'll go back to sleep, and it says, no, we're not done yet. So then I wrote a second draft of another one, and then finally a third draft, and that's what's at the bottom of the page, but you have to come tomorrow if you want to hear that. Dunbar was born in 1872, and he didn't live very long, 33 years, and he dies in 1906 from the great illness of the 19th century, consumption, otherwise known as tuberculosis, I think. He graduates from high school at 18 or 19, looks for a job. He goes, because he wants to be a lawyer, he goes to the law firms, and where is she? At any rate, he gets rejected because he's too dark. Yes, there you are. I see you, honey. At any rate, so then what happens is he takes an elevator job and works the elevator. So he makes enough money, maybe $5 to $7 a week or something like that. That's not enough, we think now. It was then. At any rate, but he realizes when people are on the elevator, they are locked in, and he can take subscriptions for poems, and they can't get away. After that, he comes up with the idea of borrowing $125. He goes to the United Presbyterian, I think, Publishing, or Methodist Publishing House, and they take him on, and he publishes Oak and Ivy. If you wander through an old bookstore anywhere in the country, and you see a copy of Oak and Ivy, buy it, because it's worth now $8,000 to $10,000. He sold his for what, $1.25. Somebody sold me theirs for $50, and I bought it. And I didn't tell them, do you know what you're doing? Anyway, Dunbar, for all of his hard work and endurance, gets blamed a good deal for writing in dialect. But we still claim Mark Twain as the eminent American novelist. He's first, and nobody argues about it. Dunbar gets short shrift because the black people think that dialect is second rate. It's true. Sorry to say that out loud. But yeah, even to back that up, it was W.E.B. Du Bois who said to Langston Hughes, please do not write in dialect. And thank goodness Langston Hughes didn't pay any attention, because otherwise we didn't have the Jessie B. Simple stories, nor will we have the Madam Tones, you know. So all of that is to our greatness and to our wealth. And I think that the guy who wrote the introduction to Dunbar was really doing him a favor, and a lot of the people have misread what he said. What I think happens is he says Dunbar has contributed to our culture by opening up the African American life and using dialect. So everybody read that, and so when Dunbar sent them a poem, if it was in dialect, they published it. They didn't publish the standard English poems. He said that the standard English poems were equal to those that were being written by white people and being published. That's what he said. And so I think that we've got to get comfortable and give poor old Dunbar his due. He says, stop talking now. We talk from time to time. When I did the book on him, I got it all done. Henry Louis Gates was supposed to write the introduction. Henry was somewhere in Africa. And so the publisher said, when do you think Henry's coming home? I said, I don't know, but I'll take care of that. And we'll have the introduction very shortly. He said, wait, never mind, I'll take care of it. So I said goodbye. I got in my car and I went to the cemetery. And I stopped at Dunbar's grave and I said, see here now, I have worked on this for 12 years. Put a fire under Henry so we can get this introduction. And by the end of the week, we had the introduction. So I do think when we argue, Dunbar and I, and he says, shut up and read the poems, it's time to shut up and read the poems. My God is so high, you can't get over him, he's so low. You can't crawl under, he is so wide. You can't get around, you have to come in by and through the land. One day as I was walking along the heavenly road, my Savior spoke unto me, and he filled my heart with love, because he was so high. You can't get over him, he's so low. You can't crawl under, he is so wide. You can't get around, you have to come in by and through the Lamb. The poet and his song. A song is but a little thing, and yet what joy it is to sing. In hours of toil it gives me zest, and when at eve I long for rest. When cows come home along the bars, and in the fold I hear the bell. As night the shepherd herds his stars, I sing my song, and all is well. There are no ears to hear my lays, no lips to lift a word of praise, but still with faith unfaltering, I live and laugh and love and sing. What matters yon unheeding throng? They cannot feel my spirit's spell, since life is sweet and love is long. I sing my song, and all is well. My days are never days of ease. I till my ground and I prune my trees. When ripened gold is all the plain, I put my sickle to the grain. I labor hard and toil and sweat, while others dream within the dell. But even while my brow is wet, I sing my song, and all is well. Sometimes the sun unkindly hot, it makes my garden a desert spot. Sometimes a blight upon the tree, it takes all my fruit away from me. And then with throes of bitter pains, rebellious passions rise and swell. But life is more than fruit or grain, and so I sing, and all is well. I'm gonna take my gospel trumpet, and then I'll begin to blow. If my Savior helps me, I will blow wherever I go, because he is so high. You can't get over him, he's so low. You can't crawl under, he is so wide. You can't get around, you have to come in by and through the land. That was standard English. Here's a dialect poem. This is called Opportunity, and it's about a grandmother and a grandson. Opportunity. Now, my granny is going visiting, and I seen her get her shawl when I was hiding down there behind the garden wall. I seen her put her bonnet on, yes I did, and I seen her tie them strings. And honey, I is going to dream about them cakes and been on the shelf behind the door, with a feast. Soon as she gets out of sight, now I can eat in peace. Cause I've been watching for a week just here for this here chance. And when I gets in there, oh, I is surely gonna get, lemon pie and ginger. Let me sit and think. Vinegar and sugar too, now that's gonna make me a fine, fine drink. And if there is one thing that I love most particularly, it is in sweet things, and drinking sangria. Lord, I won't put Granny rare when she see the chef. When I think about her face, now I is most ashamed of myself. Well, she is gone, and here I am back behind the door. Look here, my granny done expected me. There ain't no sweets, no more. Every sweet is hid away. Job is done up just brown. Person would have thought that somebody thought that there was thieves around. That just breaks my heart in two. Oh, how bad I feel just to believe that my own grandma believed that I would up and steal. A little boy, yes ma'am, did you go to the fields? Yes ma'am. Did you water my cows? Yes ma'am. Did you feed my lamb? Yes ma'am. A little boy, yes ma'am. Did you go to the fields? Yes ma'am. Did you get some corn? Yes ma'am. Did you take it to the miller? Yes ma'am. Did the miller make flour? Yes ma'am. Did the miller make flour? Yes ma'am. Did you take it to the cook? Oh, yes ma'am. Did you take it to the cook? Oh, yes ma'am. Did the cook make bread? Oh, yes ma'am. Did the bread taste good? Oh, yes ma'am, yes ma'am, yes ma'am. I guess we're gonna do this one. Dunbar is always talking with his tongue in his cheek. He's saying one thing, ironically meaning something else. And that's what makes him really a remarkable poet, I think. He's saying, now, if you don't hurry up, you won't read the last two poems. When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard that they could not stand. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell Pharaoh for to let my people go. An antebellum sermon. Now we is gathered here, my brothers and sisters, in this howling wilderness, for to speak some words of comfort to each other in distress. And we choose it for our subject. This we will explain it by and by. And the Lord said, Moses, Moses. And the man said, Here am I. Now, old Pharaoh down in Egypt, he was the worst man ever born. And they had the Hebrew children down there working in his court. But the Lord got tired of his fooling and says, I will let him know, look here, Moses, you go tell Pharaoh, but I'll let them children go. And if he refuses to do it, I will make him rule the how, for I will empty down on Egypt all the vials of my power. Yes, he did. And Pharaoh's army wasn't worth half a dime, for the Lord will help his children, and you can trust him every time. And your enemies may sail you in the back and in the front, but the Lord is all around you for to bear the battle front. And they can forge your chains and shackles from the mountains to the seas. Oh, but the Lord will send some Moses for to set his children free. and the land shall hear his thunder like a blast from Gabriel's horn. For the Lord of hosts is mighty when he girds his armor on. But for fear someone mistakes me now, I will pause right here to say that I'm still preaching ancient, and I ain't talking about today. But I'll tell you, fellow Christians, things will happen mighty strange. Now the Lord done this for Israel, and his ways don't never change. And the love he showed to Israel, it wasn't all on Israel's spend. Now don't you run and tell your masters that I was preaching discontent, because I isn't. I was judging Bible people by their acts. I was handing you the scripture, and I was handing you the facts. Of course, old Pharaoh lived in slavery, but the Lord, he let him see that the people he put breath in, every mother's son was free. And there's others think like Pharaoh, and they call the scripture liar. But the Bible says that a servant is worthy of his hire. And you can get around, not through that, and you can get over it. But whatever place you get in, this here Bible too will fit in. So you see, the Lord's intention ever since the world began was in his almighty freedom, that should belong to every man. But I think it would be better if I paused again to say, children, this evening I'm talking about our freedom in a Bible-listic way. Oh, but the Moses, he's a-coming, and he is coming sure and fast. We can hear his feet a trumpet, and we can hear that trumpet blast. I want to warn you people, don't you get too briggity, don't you get to bragging about these things, you just wait and see. But when the Moses with his power comes and sets us children free, oh, we will praise our gracious master that has given us liberty. And we will shout our hallelujahs on that mighty reckoning day, when we is recognized as citizens and children. Now, let us pray. Oh, Miss Mary, don't you weep and mourn. I say, Miss Mary, don't you weep and mourn. A Pharaoh's army got a grounded. Oh, Miss Mary, don't you weep. One of these mornings, and it won't be long, you'll look for me, children, now be gone. A Pharaoh's army got a drowned. I say, Miss Mary, don't you weep. Was a little bit prophetic, I think, and I'm going to read you these next two pieces, which I think shut everything down. But I think that they, for me, anticipate the 20th century. He's dead 6 years into the 20th century, so he's a 19th century poet forever. Because everything was written before the turn of the century. You have to guess how he does it, because I haven't figured it out, and he hasn't told me. So. This poem is called He Had His Dream. He had his dream, and all through life worked up to it through toil and strife. Afloat forever before his eyes, it colored for him all his skies, the storm cloud dark above his bark. The calm and listless vault of blue took on its hopeful hue. It tinctured every passing beam. He had his dream. He labored hard and failed at last. His sails too weak to bear the blast. The raging tempest tore away and sent his beating bark astray. But where cared he for wind or sea? He said, the tempest will be short, my bark will come to port. He saw through every cloud a gleam. He had his dream. Well, by and by, I'm going to lay down this heavy load. A Negro love song, I think, anticipates all of the music that certainly my granddaughters listen to these days. And probably the grandson will say that's history, and he's going to try and do something quite different. But imagine all of the rhythms and how fast this poem can really go. When the slaves did what they called the ham bone, they tapped on the thigh, find sound in here that was as big as Carnegie Hall, let's say, and they play that. That was called the ham bone. They just do that, and other people would snap their fingers along the way. This is called. Stop it. He's talking to me now. This is called a Negro love song, but it can also be any other kind of song when Valentine's comes. So the men in the room should remember this next February. You'll find a copy in the Collected Poems of Dunbar, page 49. That's how long I've lived with him, so I know the pages now. We're going to have a new edition one of these days. A Negro love song. I seen my lady home last night. Jump back, honey, jump back. I held her hand and I squeezed it tight. Oh, jump back, honey, jump back. I seen a light thing from her eye and a smile go drifting by. Oh, jump back, honey, jump back. I heard the wind blow through the pines. Jump back, honey, jump back. The mockingbird was singing fine. Jump back, honey, jump back. And my heart was beating so when I reached my lady's door that I couldn't bear to go. Oh, jump back, honey, jump back. Now I put my arm around her waist. Ow, jump back, honey, jump back. I raised her lips and took her taste. Oh, jump back, honey, jump back. Love me, honey, love me true. Love me well as I love you. And she answered, 'cause I do. Jump back, honey, jump back. Okay, that's it. If you do that, you'll have to give you an encore.
Yes. Have to give us an encore.
Next time you won't clap anymore. I had a fellowship once in Fulbright, and it took me to Hungary. And I was glad that I could go to Hungary to teach for a year because they had an extraordinary, Europeans sometimes have an extraordinary way of clapping. They clap in unison. And it's one of those things where you hear one group of people and the next group joins in and blessings, and the next joins in. So that was like the highlight of my travels abroad because I felt like I had been playing in Carnegie Hall. What you did was remarkable too, because I'm used to it, and I often think, why are they doing that? And he sort of whispers because they liked it. Anyway, you will find this somewhere in your volume. It's what I call a found poem. It's a letter to freedom. And you can sort of tell that I picked up on the dialect of Dunbar. August 25th, 1864. My dear Mr. President, my name is Africa Desiree. A friend of mine from the war surrender has told me that I is free to go. Can you tell me if this is true? I want to get to the east coast of these United States where they tell me some of my long-lost people reside. My friend says that you are Mr. Lincoln and would know if we are free to move about as we please. Is this true? I know you will be honest with me. My mistress refuses to tell me the truth, so I am seeking for your advice. Will you try and answer me this week or as soon as you can? If you tell me that I am free, then I know No one will stop me. It is a long way. I want to get started as soon as I can. They tell me it is a long way walking. Oblige, Africa, Desiree. Thank you very much.
My coach. My coach. Thank you all for coming. Hope to see you tomorrow night. Have a good night. Watch for deer.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.